I extend to you a warm welcome for the reception and award ceremony for 2021's Women's History Month. I'm Mallory Kochi, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am the director of the Ethnic and Gender Studies program. Now, those of you who know me know that I love to talk and I am never at a loss for words. But I will say that giving a speech such as this one for such an important event, and because it's supposed to be very formal, and because I don't have the benefit of having an audience to respond to, well, let's just say that it is a bit outside of my comfort zone. So if you have grace to give, I would greatly appreciate it, and we will get through this together. So, though we are here today to honor and celebrate this year's Women's History Month, it is important for me to recognize that because of COVID-19 and its profound impact of not just March of 2020, but really all of 2020, that we are in a way celebrating 2 years at this year's reception and award ceremony. In fact, one of the elements of Women's History Month and a reception like this is that we are recognizing the passage of yet another year, but also keeping aflame an enduring legacy of women who have helped to make ESU and our communities and the world around us what it is today. That is the part of my job that brings me the most joy. It is the knowledge that I am one of many, that my role as the new director of the Ethnic and Gender Studies program and the work that we do are only possible because of the women and allies who came before me. The awards we are publicly presenting recognize an intergenerational connection. From the folks the awards are named after, Ruth Schillinger, Mary Hedrick, Susan B. Anthony, to the folks whose service, dedication, and efforts are honored with these awards every year. I imagine that many of you watching are past recipients of these awards or have served on the Ethnic and Gender Studies Steering Committee in some capacity, or have even put on events that are part of Women's History Month at ESU. So to all of those that have come before and to all that are presently here, I say thank you. 2020 marked the 25th anniversary of the start of the Ethnic and Gender Studies program and celebrating Women's History Month at ESU. In those 25 years, the Ethnic and Gender Studies program has established an Ethnic and Gender Studies minor, has given out 3 yearly awards recognizing our campus community members' accomplishments, organized hundreds of events and guest speakers, established a brand new major in ethnic, gender, and identity studies, and has worked to improve equity and opportunities for women at ESU. There is a lot of history here to share, but I will keep my comments brief. As we look back at all we've accomplished, we must also turn our gaze forward towards the future. We must hold the tension between who we were and who we dream of becoming, of what progress we've made and what progress is yet to come. The EGS program has acutely taught me that our work is never done, that our learning is never complete, but neither are our accomplishments and celebrations. The tension between holding firm in our history and stretching forward toward our growth can be uncomfortable. But as Leonard Cohen writes, there is a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. So please join me in celebrating this year's Women's History Month recipients and award winners. I hope that you all enjoy the material that's been put together about this year's awards winners, and I thank you for being here as part of our celebrations today. Lux Alva Claridge is this year's recipient of the Susan B. Anthony Scholarship. The scholarship is awarded to the ESU student who has contributed significantly to the growth and education of women at ESU while achieving academic excellence. Along with the scholarship money, the recipient is the caretaker of a Susan B. Anthony medallion for the year before passing the medallion on to next year's winner. Lux is majoring in biochemistry and molecular biology and has spent time volunteering in various events and organizations, including things with the Girl Scouts, the Enhancing Your Future Conference, and Avid Si Se Puede. Lux intends to be a chemistry and physics teacher where they will continue to encourage more women and people of color to go into STEM fields. Lux wrote in their essay for the award, quote, "I have done great work to encourage the inclusion of women into science, and I plan to keep that work going and more so. I also plan on equipping my students, young men, women, and non-binary alike, with the knowledge of historical and current scientists, increasing our collective knowledge," end quote. The EGS program congratulates Lux on receiving this year's scholarship, and we look forward to the good work that they will continue to do.
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to recommend my friend Rochelle Shelley Rowley for the Mary F. Hedrick Award for Service to the Women of ESU and the Community. In my opinion, she doesn't just fit the criteria for this award, she embodies them. The criteria are: this award is designed for those who go the extra mile, making a long-term commitment to promoting the growth of women and girls in our schools and community in such capacities as mentoring, service, or acting as a role model. Shelley's well known around our campus and the community for her tireless service. For example, she's particularly involved with SOS, the local shelter for those who have experienced violence, abuse, and neglect. Currently, she serves as board vice president at SOS, and until 2020, she was board VP at Beacon for Hope, which is a suicide prevention program. Dr. Rowley is also a board member at Bloomhouse Youth Services, and she's done cultural competency training at SOS, St. Francis Ministries for foster parents, and CASA. She also recently served as a panelist discussing LGBTQIA+ terminology and best practices for Crosswinds, a local provider of mental health services. And she's assisted with inclusive care for transgender people at Newman Regional Health. She does just as much here on the ESU campus. Shelley advises McNair Scholars. She serves on the Ethnic and Gender Studies Steering Committee, and she's been the LGBTQ+ Faculty Staff Advisory Council President. She's also the faculty advisor to Pride and served as a search committee member for the Director of Ethnic and Gender Studies and a Diversity Education Committee member. You may have noticed me reading part of that, and let me tell you why. Shelley does so much that I can't keep it all straight without reading part of it from a script. That's how much she does for Emporia State, for Emporia, for Lyon County, and for this whole region. I'm proud to call her my friend, and I think she is eminently deserving of this award. Shelley, congratulations.
Hello, everyone. I'm extremely honored to receive the Dr. Mary F. Hedrick Award for service to women in the Emporia and ESU community. Thank you to the Interdisciplinary Studies Committee for this award and their commitment to fostering a deeper understanding of and responsibility toward the common good of marginalized genders. I am one of many at Emporia State University and in the Emporia community who are committed to this work. I'm especially grateful for the opportunity to serve in community organizations that assist individuals in need. SOS empowers and advocates for those affected by sexual and domestic violence, child abuse, and neglect. Bloomhouse Youth Services is a newer organization providing services through a culture of acceptance for vulnerable, at-risk, and homeless youth. Beacon for Hope is dedicated to linking the community together through education, resources, support, and hope for those who have been affected by suicide. The work of these organizations and others in our community is far from over, but we have accomplished a great deal and made positive changes in the lives of many. Let's keep moving forward.
Hi, I'm Rob Catlett, and I am honored to have nominated Becca Selby for the Ruth Schillinger Award. I wanted to say a few words about Ruth Schillinger before I talk a little bit about Becca. I first met Ruth Schillinger when I became a professor at ESU back in 1976. Ruth was the Dean of Women. She was also the Affirmative Action Officer. And I don't remember the exact time, but it must have been in August of 1976. Maybe it was right after school had begun or maybe right before. anyway, somebody, I think it may have been Pat O'Brien, said, you have an appointment to visit with Ruth Schillinger. And I said, what for? And he said, well, she's the Dean of Women, may have been the former Dean of Women, but also the Affirmative Action Officer, and she wants to visit with you. And my mind was racing. I'm thinking, what's going on? I didn't have any comprehension of why somebody had made an appointment for me to visit with the Dean of Women and the Affirmative Action Officer. And so I made an appointment, or went to the appointment, and Ruth was there, and she was very gracious, and we sat down and we visited. She was talking about equal opportunity in economics, and she was picking my brain a little bit. And I didn't understand why. Women have been underrepresented in economics for a long time. That's, some people may say it's the mathematics, but women are represented in mathematics at a far greater percentage than they are in economics. And so we visited for quite a while, and I was really impressed with Ruth. She was sincerely interested in my opinions, and she was well versed in what was going on in my field, and I thought, oh, this is incredibly delightful. Now, I didn't realize until I went back and looked up something about Ruth. I was going back into a federal court case where she and I were both witnesses on behalf of the university, and then it just last night, it dawned on me why she was so well versed on it. It has been a challenge to get women into economics. When I was a student at the University of Nebraska, there was only one woman in all of the intermediate macro classes, which is required of all economics majors. It was also required of most business majors like finance and that kind of stuff. And it has been a challenge. My first professor was a woman in economics, and she had been at the London School of Economics, and she was absolutely fantastic. So when we had the opportunity to hire somebody in economics, and specifically to try to launch our quantitative economics program, we had over 180 applicants for that position. Brian Hollenbeck and I, my chair, were in Chicago, and we were inundated. The maximum number of slots of people we could visit with was 25, and Becca was one of those. She impressed both of us, and we are absolutely delighted to have hired Becca Selby as an assistant professor of economics. She hit the ground running when she came to ESU. We wanted her to launch the informatics quantitative economics program. She had an ideal background for it. She was a physics major. She was a math major, as I recall, and then an economics major. She had the quantitative aptitude, but also she's committed to civic engagement, and everything about Becca Selby said she would be a perfect fit. No surprise, she was. So she created, I can't remember exactly how many classes, but I think it was over a dozen graduate courses in her first semester at ESU. Then she also created additional classes that were like women in economics, race, gender, and discrimination, health economics, economics of crime. There was a myriad of different courses, many of them honors courses. So she has had almost every semester a 4-course load and 4 different preparations, and many times it was a brand new preparation. Students really gravitate towards Becca. She's a mentor. She encourages them. I was just visiting with her this afternoon, and we were talking about some of her students who have become absolutely enchanted with economics. The first people that she met as a rookie professor, those students have now started to graduate. That was just a few years ago. One of them graduated first in her class in 2020 with a perfect 4.0, and Becca was her first teacher. So in her first class, it was Becca Selby. Becca and I took a group of students to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis for a Women in Economics Symposium. I could go into chapter and verse about this, but Becca's students were among the most vocal. They were highly professional, they were diplomatic, they were passionate. And this was a turn-away conference, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. This was the very first one. They didn't know, actually it was the second one, I'm sorry. it was the second one, and they didn't realize it was going to be so popular. Their auditorium only held 125 people. We were fortunate to be there, and her students were absolutely impressive in their discussion. Those students continued at ESU, and we continued to do really amazing things with that. But part of that is about mentoring. So one of her students came from Colombia, South America, and I remember having her in class, and this student said, "I'm just not good enough to be able to do this stuff." And I tried to reassure her. I don't know how successful I was, but when Becca was able to visit with her, that student really blossomed. And so instead of having this imposter syndrome, Becca mentored her. The student graduated. She graduated in Colombia, South America, and came here to work under Becca to finish her bachelor's degree program because it had a thesis involved with it, and she wanted to do some research that was right up Becca's alley. And then she decided to come here for graduate school because of Becca. Now she's applying to PhD programs in economics. That's not easy, and especially with people who are a little bit timid, Becca is an amazing mentor. I would be remiss if I didn't say some of the things that Becca did with the American Democracy Project. The American Democracy Project began about 15 years ago, and it's trying to get students civically engaged. That's one of the things that really impressed us about Becca. This isn't just about voting. I don't know if you realize it, but ESU has led the state of Kansas over the last 3 election cycles in terms of voter registration and voting. If we were to go back to the beginning of the American Democracy Project, the campus audits revealed that we had less than 10% of our students registered to vote. Now we have the highest voter registration and the highest percentage of voting among our students of any university or community college in Kansas. Becca is a big part of that. The American Democracy Project also focuses on civic engagement, trying to make communities better by having us use our intellectual and creative talents. And when I say us, it's not me, it's not Becca, it's students working arm in arm with faculty to try to make a difference. Well, early in her career, Becca made a name for herself with the American Democracy Project, and so she was invited to join the steering committee. This is the national steering committee of the American Democracy Project, and she was also on the conference planning committee. That was in her second or third year at ESU. That's almost unheard of. Becca has been involved with the Kansas Leadership Center. I remember she and I went to a KLC program in Wichita. Becca was one of the most powerful voices at that symposium. That's no surprise to me. She occasionally will reveal that the imposter syndrome that I talked about earlier. Becca said that she's experienced that, and she is committed to making certain that other students don't have it, whether they're women who face the imposter syndrome, men who face it, LGBTQ people who face the imposter syndrome. Becca is committed to making a difference. I am convinced that Ruth Schillinger would have looked at Becca and said she's an ideal candidate to be one of the people who is the leader on our campus. Ruth would have been a little bit apprehensive about having an award named after her, at least the Ruth Schillinger that I knew, but that was to be. Ruth wasn't going to have any say in that, and she would be honored to have Becca Selby as this year's Ruth Schillinger Award winner. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Becca Selby, and I'm an economist over in the Department of Math and Econ. I'm overjoyed to be receiving the Ruth Schillinger Award this year. As a faculty member in the Department of Math and Econ, I've had the immense pleasure of witnessing the growth and development of our young women into the amazing leaders and drivers of social change that we see today. They are making incredible impacts in their communities as well as abroad. These young women have banded together, developed clubs and lifelong friendships, the collegiality with one another that will last a whole lifetime. And quite frankly, It gives me hope that economics will someday no longer be among the least diverse programs in terms of race and gender. To take just a moment to talk about what I think we can do to help continue to inspire our young women in economics as well as other disciplines. One thing I think is very important is to be genuine and real with your students. Admit that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay if you even have something like the imposter syndrome where you feel like maybe everybody will think I'm a fraud and maybe I'm not as good as everybody thinks I am. The imposter syndrome does affect a lot of young women in economics as well as other disciplines, and just being okay and honest telling your students how you feel sometimes. Normalizing feelings in our discipline and fostering support for one another can be immensely helpful for women in economics as well as our other disciplines. Secondly, being willing to examine and address your own biases. No one can escape your innate subconscious or conscious biases. Everyone has them. So being willing to be honest about it, talking about it with your students, and challenging them to investigate their own biases as well, inside and outside of the classroom. For young women in economics, it's also especially important to highlight the successes alongside of giving critical feedback. In economics, we can often be viewed as harsh or unwelcoming because we tend to find fault in just about everything. But one of the ways that we can foster the ability for young women to feel welcomed into our discipline is to give success words, to highlight those ideas. New thoughts and ideas should be welcomed rather than immediately dismissed. And if we are being critical, highlighting a little bit of both. I'd like to finish off by saying a warm thank you to my colleague Rob Catlett and all of the other colleagues in my department, which have worked so hard to create a welcoming and inclusive learning environment for our young women as well as all of our students. Again, thank you for this nomination and award, and I look forward to working with other people in the future to help make ESU a welcoming and inclusive environment for all people. Thank you.
Thank you for being here as part of Women's History Month at ESU. We greatly appreciate your support. Before we transition to the live Mingle and Chat Zoom event at 3:30, I want to acknowledge and extend my congratulations to last year's award winners. Dr. Cheryl Lizzie from Communication for the Mary Hedrick Award, Dr. Demara Paris from Counselor Education for the Ruth Schillinger Award, and Lyra Wallace, graduate student double majoring in clinical counseling and art therapy for the Susan B. Anthony Scholarship. 2020 came with much loss, including the opportunity to publicly celebrate Women's History Month and our award winners. These three are deserving of much praise and gratitude for their work at ESU. I hope to see you all at our live Mingle and Chat event this afternoon at 3:30. And as always, take care of yourselves, and thank you for supporting Women's History Month and the Ethnic and Gender Studies program at ESU.